After a win on Derrick Rose Night, the Chicago Bulls have now reached that 35-game mark that we heard was going to be used to evaluate the team, with rumors now popping up of Nikola Vucevic and the Golden State Warriors' interest in the talented center. We'll talk about the 35-game stretch, what could be next down the pipeline for the Chicago Bulls, and dive into the mailbag. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And we've reached the 35-game mark. The 35-game mark that we heard was so important in this front office in their desire to evaluate where they are as a roster, right? And with that said, we've got no clear indication on what the Chicago Bulls are going to do with their roster going forward. There's been a lot of speculation on sides about what they could do, what they want to do, and then kind of what the market out there is dictating where their place is as well in some of this. I think that's the best part to evaluate all of this, right? And that's the part that we really don't know, is that to make a move, to want to make any type of trades, to do anything, you first have to have a market out there for your players. Now, Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic have had very solid seasons. Vuce was on a little bit of a downturn there for about 2 or 3 games, but it really didn't last long. You saw how he performed last night. Zach LaVine's coming off a 33-point game in Derrick Rose Night. And so, the direction that this team is going, we sit right now currently still at the 10th seed in that Eastern Conference. We still have a negative point differential of 3.4. You have the Philadelphia 76ers 1 game back of the Chicago Bulls for that 10th seed as well. And the 76ers have been playing much better basketball, 7-3 in their last 10. The Detroit Pistons have won 3 in a row, even after losing Jaden Ivey, have still gotten a big win. And so the Bulls, if they're looking at the record and the place in that Eastern Conference, if they're reviewing that, the Bulls have been primarily where the Bulls have been the last couple of years, right? Now, with that said, the Bulls still hold the 10th best odds as far as in the lottery, right? Which means that, if the season were to just end and you just based off record were to keep your pick, the Bulls would keep their top 10 pick. Now, we know that there's a lottery involved, right? And so the Bulls can be jumped up and be passed. They can go as far as down as 14th, or they can go high. They can go in that top 4. They actually have an 11% chance to fall into the top 4 as well, 11.7% chance there. So, those things matter as well, right? But when it comes down to it, the Bulls still do not have that clear path as far as, they can make the play-in. And I think that that's a real possibility with this roster, is that the Bulls make the play-in, but then you got to ask yourself, what's next after that, right? How do you continue to improve the team after that point? And that's one of the biggest questions here, and it's been the biggest question. Their evaluation on how the Bulls can move forward is also one of the most important evaluations here, not just of the talent, but, okay, have you seen enough from Kobe, Io, Julian, Dalen, Modest Bucilis, that you think that these guys are going to take a sizable step, leap, or whatever that really increases your chances, because that's what you're hoping for. Vuce is who he is. Matter of fact, Vuce is more likely to decline than he is to improve. Now, his numbers are much better because he does not have DeMar DeRozan occupying the same spots as him. We talked about that ad nauseum. I'm not going back into that in depth. Zach LaVine is 29 years old. Decline can start coming at any point in time. He'll be 34, 33 by the end of his contract. So more than likely, you're going to still see prime Zach LaVine over the course of this contract. That's why the Bulls felt comfortable getting there, right? So you got to ask what, and I didn't mention Patrick Williams in that, right? Are any of those guys going to take a needed enough step for you to feel like, all right, what are we going to do here going forward? Like, we're going to be able to get better because these young guys are getting better. The Bulls also have $57 million below the tax apron next year. And while that's not cap space outright where they can just go sign somebody for that amount of money, that does allow them to have their full mid-level exception. Hell, they even have a trade exception of $17 million that they can use to absorb some other salary as well. So the Bulls have some assets that they can use to improve this offseason. Hell, they got some assets they can use to improve this trade deadline if they choose to do so. It's still having $9.5 million beneath the first tax apron as well do the Chicago Bulls. So I think that's something that's also been kind of forgotten in the Bulls and in any type of trade conversation, right? Is that the Bulls they can absorb more money than they send out. If they're not a second tax apron team, so they can do that, right? So a team doesn't necessarily, they can send more money back, but then again, we've heard that the Chicago Bulls don't want to take on bad salary with the Zeke Naji thing, right? So that's another thing that plays a part into this. Overall, right, that throughout this 35 games, the evaluation that AK and Eversley wanted to do, if they're evaluating it by standing, nothing has changed. If they're evaluating it by the young guys really stepping up considerably, maybe a little bit can be pointed to that. If they're evaluating it by, hey, is this a team that can actually go on a run in the play-in and make the playoffs? Depends on how you look at it. With one of the league's worst defenses, a really good fast-paced offense that it relies on the three-point shot. Is your three falling or not? Which more teams are doing around the league. It presents a question on, all right, well, what have you learned in that evaluation, right? We'll see. You got a lot of key dates coming in. Taylor Horton-Tucker, his deal becomes fully guaranteed by the 10th. That's really the only one. And if that happens, every one of your contracts are guaranteed at that point. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but you have a team full of guaranteed contracts, meaning that you don't have the ability to take on an additional contract back in any trades. You got to match the exact players for the players unless you're going to waive somebody and pay them the rest of the season to just sit at home, right? So there's that aspect of it as well. So this has been a fun mixed bag for the first 35 games of the season, right? 6 games away from it being the official, halfway mark of the season, but it's been a lot of ups. It's been downs. I've talked about it before. The Bulls don't have a lot of quality wins as far as against teams with their fully healthy roster, but we do got 2 against the New York Knicks. Both those games that we faced off against the Knicks, they were fully healthy. Well, minus Mitchell Robinson, of course, who they haven't had all this season yet. So there you go, that on that one. We got 2 wins against the Knicks. We got 2 wins against the Bucks. We split that season series 2-2, even though they were missing some guys in one of those games. So when it comes down to it, like, this Bulls team still firmly sits in a place where it's in the middle. We don't really know. Like, you can't look at this team and say one way or another, but we'll see what comes along. We'll see, what happens here with the Bulls. They're obviously, for those that were holding out hope, this Bulls team isn't outwardly tanking. They're not outwardly tanking. And if they were, they would have been able to find moves for Zach LaVine or Nikola Vucevic if they were willing to just take back less. But they are looking to get back value in the contracts. Not equal value, right? But value in any moves and deals if they decide to do any. And one of those that have recently came up as well is that the Golden State Warriors reportedly, and this came from The Athletic, do look at Nikola Vucevic as a viable option. Now, this initially came out in a conversation or article in regards to their interest in Jimmy Butler, which seems like there's not a legitimate interest there, but they are looking at deals more towards a type like Nikola Vucevic. Tracy Jackson-Davis is a player that they've used as a small ball center. They want to add some legit size and will not be mad at adding a stretch center as well. Now, reportedly in that same Athletic article, any Warriors deal with Nikola Vucevic would either center around Moses Moody, or if the Bulls are willing to take back Kyle Anderson's contract and they get a first. Not both, right? And I think that's the key aspect that you're looking at in this, is that if the Warriors were offering Moses Moody and a first-round pick, all right, that gets the conversation going. But if you're saying that if you get Moses Moody, that takes the first-round pick off the board, which is what they're alluding to here in this Athletic article, I got some questions about that, right? Like, Moses Moody is only still 22 years old, make no mistake about it. But this is a guy that's basically fallen out of your rotation for the most part. He's playing 15 minutes per game. He's putting up 8 points per game. Yes, he has some size at 6'5", 211, but don't we have enough guards, right? And so if you want us to take back a position that isn't a position of need, what are we doing here? And it's not like Moses Moody does not have a sizable contract left. He just signed a 3-year deal. He's still got years left on that deal. Now, I'm not saying that Moses Moody can't play a role for the Chicago Bulls going forward, even if they do acquire him, but he got 3 years left on this deal after this season. Now, the deal is not ridiculous. The most that he's making over that deal is $13.4 million in the last year of that deal. But to me, again, you gotta come up with a pick. The Golden State Warriors have 7 picks, first-round picks that they can move, right? That they are eligible to move. You got to come off those picks if you want Nikola Vucevic, in my personal humble opinion. Now, the Kyle Anderson part of it, if the Bulls are willing to take back Kyle Anderson, you better believe we're taking back a 31-year-old role player. You're damn right giving us a first-round pick. So here goes the thing, and this is why I say, and I led this off with saying, again, it's about the evaluation of other teams. Because reportedly, there are deals out there, right? And some could say that, well, Haize, it seems like this front office is terrified to make a bad deal, and thus that may lead them to make a no deal. And you're right, that is a risk of it. But I tell you what, I'm tired of the Bulls undervaluing talent. I'm tired of the Bulls undervaluing and getting nothing back in return when we're trying to reportedly, if we want to clear the deck, we're gonna clear some of our veteran salary to help us stack for the future, right? At least that's what I would think that part of that plan is. But then again, this is an AK and Eversley run team, and despite still riding off the high of Derrick Rose Night, I'm still a realist. And anything is possible with this front office, good or bad, right? So we'll see what happens there. But overall, 35-game evaluation is hit. Between now and mid-December, we have a lot of games against below 500 teams. And I think that I've been December, mid-January. So this is an important period for this Bulls team to really try to figure some stuff out. Because if they cannot choose a direction yet again at this trade deadline, which I want to be clear here, that's still the most likely scenario. But if they cannot choose and settle in on a direction by this year's trade deadline, that kicks it again to the offseason, which then nothing may happen in the offseason. It kicks it again. Every year that you don't make a clear direction on what to do with your roster, you're hurting your assets. You're even somewhat hurting the development of your young guys, right? Especially with Coach Billy Donovan out there in the way that he coaches. He's going to coach to win every game, which means he's going to play veterans over young guys at times, right? So that is, it's more than just deciding, oh, well, we got to trade these guys to just keep the top 10 pick. It's also a lot of other decisions and avenues. You got to ask yourself, how much are you hurting future trade value by not trading them now? Now, you could end up helping it, right? Let's say Zach LaVine goes on a tear to end this season. He finishes, has an amazing season. Let's even say that the Bulls go through the play-in. They make it out the play-in. They go into the first round. Zach LaVine has a great first-round series despite the Bulls losing or whatever. Maybe you do get more back in a case like that, right? You do miss out on the ability to draft in this year's draft if that happens, but maybe you get more back for Zach than your team is in the lottery in the 2026 draft, which is still a deep draft as well. There's a lot of different avenues and routes. Just got to see which way the Bulls are going to go with it. But let me know your guys' thoughts, as always, down below. What do you think about the Nikola Vucevic Golden State Warriors talk? And, by the way, before we get out of this, my Bulls fans that have been saying anything about the Bulls should get Jimmy Butler, stop it. No, this Bulls team does not need – people are complaining. We got a voicemail from Todd. He's bitching about the Chicago Bulls and having 2 Derrick Rose nights. You really want them to try to pitch a whole nostalgic season on Jimmy Butler? Plus, Jimmy Butler wants to go to a team that's winning. Do you think that's do you know what type of shit he would start here in Chicago? No, I'm good. I know there's just only a small portion of the community that's talking about potentially bringing in Jimmy Butler, but stop it. Stop it. I'm smacking your hand. Stop it. All right, let's get into these voicemails, man. This first voicemail, this one's from Nick.
What's up, Haize? It's Nick. Calling to leave a voicemail. Just listen to Shay's voicemail in the most recent episode. If we got a first for Zach and Vooch, I feel like that'd be pretty solid. I feel like we're not getting crazy value, unfortunately, for those guys at this point. But I do think if we get a first for each, and say we keep the top 10 pick that we owe the Spurs, and then one of these other picks that we pick up from Zach and Vooch, assuming those are the only 2 that we trade, who would you want to see draft wise? Maybe it's too early for draft questions. But who would you want to see draft wise? Maybe like around the 8 range, and then like the 15 range. Doesn't necessarily have to be like in-depth analysis on somebody, but just like, what are you imagining with a Matas and a Kobe fitting well there? Thanks, man. Appreciate what you do. See ya.
I think that getting a first each back for Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine should be academic at this point. I think that should be, regardless of the players, the first thing that I would have on the conversation with any other team, which first are you making available to us? How protected is it if you're giving us a protected first? And then I would evaluate how likely those picks are to convey. That's the first thing that I'm talking about in conversation for either one of those guys. They deserve their play. And I don't give a damn about Nikola Vucevic not being a defender. He's still one of the best offensive centers in the game of basketball. And if you're trading for him, you know what he is defensively. So you call me, I didn't call you. So where's that first round pick? That's the first opening door conversation that we're having. Where's the first? Is it protected? Is it not? Then I'm going to talk to my people. How likely do we think this is to convey? That's what I'm doing. So yes, we better get it. Now, as far as who I would want to see the Bulls draft, really, brother, and I don't mean to say this to like not answer your question, But it's so much up in the air that I can't say. Because ultimately, like, this Bulls roster could look very different. It could look very different, or it could look the same. I will say this, just kind of spitballing. At number between 8 and 10, my guy's Asa Newell. I think that's the guy that I would love to see the Bulls draft. I keep going back to Asa Newell. I think that if you draft Asa Newell, you have a front court rotation going forward into the future is locked. Between Patrick Williams, even though, yes, he's flawed, he's passive P, all those type of things. You got a solid defensive three-point shooter there. You got Modest Vucevic, whose ceiling is through the roof. You got Asa Newell, whose ceiling's through the roof as well. You have those three guys as a forward rotation. I like it. I like the way that it balances out. Because P. Will apparently is going to be here because of his contract, and he still is a productive player, especially defensively. I think at that point, Asa Newell, Modest Vucevic, and what their upsides are offensively, we don't even necessarily need to rely on Patrick Williams' offense a lot at that point in time. And eventually, those guys are going to become the starter, in my opinion. And then you're probably bringing P. Will off the bench. Again, that's further down the road. Asa Newell at number between 8 and 10, that's my guy. VJ Edgecombe is another guy that I like. But if you draft VJ Edgecombe, Io, Giddey, Kobe, one of those three are being moved. Now, I'm not saying initially right when you draft them, you may go through a season because you don't know how the rookie's going to play and those type of things. But I think eventually one of those guys has to go if that's what you draft. As far as if the Bulls get a pick in the later part of the draft, also at number 8, I must say as well, Kaman Malowik as well, is that if he's a guy that falls, which some mocks do have him falling that low, if he falls into that 8 to 10 range category, he's definitely somebody that's on my board as well. Now, as far as in the 15 to 20 range, Hugo Gonzalez. Like, the mocks are having him fall where I really think he should be rising. And I think that if he falls in that area, you got a player that could end up being one of the best guards in this draft. So if you walk away with a forward in Asa Newell or a center in Kaman Malowik, and you get a guard in Hugo Gonzalez in this year's draft, I think that puts you in a really good place. So that's my answer to your question. Those are the guys that I'd be looking at in that area. All right, let's get into the next voicemail, man. This one's from Todd.
Yo, what's up, Haize? It's Todd. Giving you a shout before the Derrick Rose Day game with the Knicks tonight. And it struck me, man, that I've gotten some clarity. I've been a Bulls fan since I've been born and raised on the South Side my entire life. I love this team, but I hate this fucking organization. Exhibit A, today, just now, it's on ESPN as I speak. Shams reports that the Bulls have determined to retire Derrick Rose's number next fucking year. Now, why does that make any sense at all? I'm in advertising and marketing. I've been doing that my entire life. If I in any way ran the Bulls brand like they run the Bulls brand, I would have been fired 10 times over. This nostalgia baiting bullshit that they constantly do, and this will ladder back to basketball, it illustrates how terribly run this organization is. To have a Derrick Rose Day where you're going to have Tibbs, Joakim, his Boozer, all of his people there, and not retire his jersey today, but wait until next year to do the whole fucking thing again, makes no goddamn sense. What are we doing? And this is my point about this organization. They are stuck on fucking stupid. They have no foresight at all. I'm sure they saw his Derrick Rose's interview where he said, nah, I prefer my jersey retired than a statue, and said, oh, you know what? We need to retire his jersey. Could you not have had that conversation with him months ago? But now what we're going to do is do what we're going to do tonight all over again next year when we retire his fucking jersey. Now, I'm super happy that they decided to come to some sense and retire his jersey, but why the fuck aren't they doing that today? It's the exact same reason that they still kept Billy, that AK is still here, that we choose the players that we choose in trades and things like that, because they're stuck on fucking stupid. It's from ownership through general manager and president, through coach, through players. It is systemic. Even if you go to Glassdoor and look at like Bulls reviews for people who work there, it's the same shit. It's crazy how idiotically this fucking organization is run. So my point is that this type of thing, retiring his jersey next year versus the Derrick Rose Day today, is exactly why we're fucking stuck in the middle on the basketball court. No foresight at all. At all. Just run by idiots. All right, man. That's it.
Hate the organization, but love the team. Here's the thing that I'll tell you with this. I get what you just, very passionate rant, but here's the thing. Derrick Rose deserves to have two. And it's not that different. When you look at it, when a player retires, like we did with Joakim Noah, when a player retires, that's been so much, you have a night, right? Like I go to Allen Iverson. They had a night when Allen Iverson officially retired. And then when he came back, right? And then when they had the trophy, because they didn't retire his jersey, they had another celebration night. Same thing with Dwayne Wade. When Dwayne Wade retired, they had a Dwayne Wade night. But then when they had the statue for him, he got another night. Now, yes, it is something to be said that is in back-to-back years. And I'm not saying that the Bulls aren't nostalgia baiting, but to say that it's foolish and it goes to on the court, I think you're just being reactive, man. And I respect you, Todd, but I think you're being reactive because last night was to acknowledge his retirement, right? That's what it was for. Next year, it's to celebrate him, what he means to the city, what he means is celebrate him, right, in a different way by putting his jersey going up in the rafters. Now, like I said, if those things were separated by like 3 years, then I think maybe it wouldn't feel as much as like a nostalgia grab. But since they announced it, and I think it is intentional. I think and they wanted to surprise Derrick Rose with that moment because they were a franchise that said they weren't retiring jerseys. So this is one that I don't agree with you, Todd. I don't think that it's a sign. I acknowledge that it is a nostalgia bait. Make no mistake about it. But Derrick Rose deserves 2 nights to celebrate his career. That's just the way I view it. That's the way I feel about it. And I'm not mad at it at all personally. But all right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Shay.
What's up, Haize? This is Shay. Yes, last night's game was very touching for me, man. It's not just that it's Derrick Rose and what he meant to the city, but speaking for myself, man, when you go from watching someone that's a 12-year-old kid and now you're a damn near almost 30-year-old man, and not only you've seen him grow up, but you've also grown. You feel like you've grown up right along with him, And I know I've preached, Derrick Rose is a big part of my childhood, but not just in bringing my love of the game of basketball, but just seeing how he has taken steps in his life and seeing how people of my age bracket who grew up watching Derrick Rose has grown up and now we're grown, not just on the mental basis, but the emotional basis. It really means the world to me. You know what I'm saying? I know what people are going to say. Oh, you didn't know Derrick Rose personally, but it's just like to have someone come from our city and give kids, and I'm going to say kids because around the time he was drafted, I was a kid. 2008, I was 12. Giving kids like me hope coming from the inner cities, that really meant the world to me. And just seeing him get his jersey retirement, hopefully he gets into the Hall of Fame, it will mean the absolute world for me and kids of my era that grew up in the city of Chicago, man. That's what Derrick Rose means to me. And I know you may not care, but hey, it is what it is. Anyway, you can tell me what you think if you want. But I just want to tell you that's what Derrick Rose really means to me.
Jay, much like you, I'm a little bit older than you, of course, but yeah, to see Derrick Rose grow and me grow up with Derrick Rose, right? I'm only 2 years older than Derrick Rose. That's crazy, right? And so, yeah, seeing D Rose and what he came into this league and how he's grown as a man, yeah, it should hit you. It should mean something to you, right? So, yeah, I mean, listen, it's great to be able to see ourselves, and on top of that, not just see ourselves in one of our favorite players for our favorite teams, but somebody that's from the city, right? The same city that you grew up in. So, yeah, it's not bad. You're not there's a lot of people who feel the exact same way that you do, Shay. You're 12 years old. Now you're about to be 30. And to see the growth and maturation of Derrick Rose, I'm sure that reflects in part to some things that you've seen and done in your own life, right? So, no, that is why Derrick Rose means so much to the city. That is why Derrick Rose means so much to the team. That's why Derrick Rose means so much to basketball. So, yeah, hats off to Derrick Rose, and hats off to you, brother. Hats off to the celebration. All right, let's get into the last voicemail for today. This one's from Corn.
What it don't do, King, it's your brother Corn, man. Let's get right into it, man. Man, I do graveyard shift, so I was, I ain't gonna hold you, I was scared to watch it, brother. I didn't want to watch this team get blown out or none of that shit, man. I didn't want to see it, man. I didn't want to, so I was asleep through it all, man. I woke up today and saw that we won. Took the second half, but we won. But I don't even want to talk about that, man. I want to talk about D Rose, specifically the speech he had. The evolution of that man is such a beautiful thing to see. As a Bulls fan, I've been a Bulls fan I'm 37 years old. Yeah, I'm 37 years old. So 32 years. I was 5 years old. 92. My dad is a Lakers fan, and 92. That's when Yeah, I became a Bulls fan. Watching, of course, Mike first repeat, right? And then I was 10 years old after that. But he brought me the joy of what a Bulls man. It's just, he brought so much joy, man, to that, man, of what a Bull supposed to be, what it is. Just a true humble guy. And the speech that he had to us, it choked me up, it teared me up, because the same thing I say to my daughter, you want to be good or you want to be great. And she said it before, it's just something, man, what he meant to me, just as a person, as a man, growing up with him in some way, as a father. But man, I can go on and on. I only got 3 minutes, man. I love you, D Rose, man. Thank you for everything, man. You are forever the MVP, man. You are forever my MVP. All right, guys. Blessings, King.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Derrick Rose night was perfect. It was perfect. The only thing that I would have rather been able to see is Ayo Dosunmu be in that court, right? But everything was just so perfect. It was so great, and I think that it's amazing to be able to see one of our guys get to that heights. And I love the way that he ended it in saying, next is Derrick Rose, the businessman. And I can't wait to see what that is. I can't wait to see what he does with the city of Chicago, what he does for the city of Chicago as that thing continues to just develop as well. Like that's a really, really great thing that we get to see this development, right? And so, Derrick Rose, the joke him talking about him, I wish they would have given Tibbs some time to talk as well, but it is what it is, and maybe that'll come on retirement night. But it's really important, and the Bulls pulling out that win, motivated by that second half, all that, just important and amazing to see. You just gotta love it, man. You gotta love it. And I was frustrated at the half, down by 9, but it really made the story that much better. It made the story that much better. And like I said over on Locked On Bulls, when they do the Derrick Rose documentary, and to be able to talk about Derrick Rose night, and then to be able to say, hey, look at this speech that was at halftime, and look how this team came out and was fired up, and Kobe White saying that they wanted to win for Derrick Rose and all that type of thing, that moment of him standing and looking at the crowd, like, it just, the whole night was an event, and it was special. And yeah, still on the Derrick Rose night hangover, man, myself as well. But thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.